masterpiece. I think it's one of his best, and definitely one of the best movies of the early 2000s, of that decade.
Do you remember and maybe I'm confusing the movies, but I'm pretty sure it's in Knocked Up. Seth Rogen and all his buddies, they're sitting around and they start talking about how badass Munich is and how nobody gives that movie the credit that it deserves. Do you remember that?
I remember that. You were absolutely right. It's in Knocked Up. And they're talking about it, and he's talking about how, like, they're going to get laid because of Eric Bana and everything. You're absolutely right. That Judd Apatow must have been a big fan of the movie, so he gives it a big shout out.
Nice. I'm glad you remembered that. So
it's a really funny scene too. They're like super into Munich.
All right. So it was those two, correct?
Yes, those two. Beverly Hills Cop and Munich.
Nice. All right. So I have two for you as well. The first one is a kind of sci-fi romance tale by our own Spike Jonze. It's 2013's Her with Joaquin Phoenix, Scarlett Johansson, Rooney Mara, Amy Adams, a stacked cast, a beautifully realized film, basically about kind of middle-aged man who is going through a rough divorce. They are in, the distant future where technology has, kind of progressed a little bit more than we are now, I guess. And he kind of adopts this new operating system and starts to fall in love with this operating system, and it's kind of his little adventure into that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and fantastic movie. I love that movie. I remember watching it and thinking, like, wow, like, that's one of the most honest and real depictions of a relationship I've seen it in a movie, even though it was a relationship between, a human man and an operating system.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love the movie. It's so good. And as we were talking earlier, I think 2013 was a bit of a weaker year for films. And that was like one of like the 6 or 7 what I thought were really great movies that year.
Definitely agree. And so I don't forget, this recommendation isn't just at random. Recently, the new Arcade Fire score for this film, which has been unreleased since the film came out, besides the Karen O song, the Moon Song single that was released. We finally got the entire score by Arcade Fire and Owen Pallett, I believe his name is, and it is very, very good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Maybe I should look into getting that one too.
Yeah, check it out.
I like that score.
It's it's pressed on vinyl, cassette, obviously digital if you're into that, but pick it up in some form. People listening out there, support analog.
Yeah, I agree. It's vinyl, something that you and I both support big time.
Yes.
And have big collections between the two of us.
Definitely. It's ridiculous. But it's fun. It's fun nonetheless. And moving on to my second rec, and I'm going to say this again. You might question my logic here, Chris, but Godzilla vs. Kong, it came out yesterday, exclusively on HBO Max right now. I watched it last night after wrapping up with my notes for the show that we're doing, and it's a fun ride. It gives you exactly what you would want. The cinematography is beautiful. I loved kind of the character building in it, and I also really admired how Adam Wingard, the director, who I'm a big fan of, was able to make this film accessible to people who aren't really familiar with, the mythology of the Titans, or maybe, people who haven't seen Kong Skull Island or Godzilla King of the Monsters. And I think that was a really important element that they got right. And the movie's very fun. It feels very epic. And I just hope, as people are able to see this as it was intended on the big screen as well.
Well, I'll definitely give that a look. I told you before that I did not care for King of the Monsters at all. I couldn't sit through it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I only made it through maybe 30 or 40 minutes and just didn't give a shit, so I bounced. But I did like Skull Island. Skull Island was a lot of fun.
Yes.
So maybe I'll give this one a look based on your recommendation. I do like at least the first two Adam Wingard movies a lot.
Okay.
You're Next and The Guest.
I was thinking about that. So did you never... I'm sure it wasn't because you didn't want to. Maybe you just haven't gotten around to it. But you haven't seen his version of Death Note yet, then?
No.
Okay.
No, that was on Netflix, right?
Yeah, I think it's a Netflix original.
No, I haven't seen it. I know I've only seen the first two because the only other movies he did was Death Note and the Blair Witch sequel or remake or whatever it was.
Yeah. Yes.
Which I know you guys have talked about on the show a while back.
We did. I know you are you fucking hate the original, and it's way...
Oh, I hate it so much.
Yeah, his version is way...
I'll tell anyone why I hate it so much for multiple reasons beyond just the film itself.
I think I remember the stories of that. I kind of wish you were on that episode. It would have been so fun.
I would have just shit all over that original movie so much.
We kind of
my experience with it.
Were you were working in film back then already?
Oh yeah. What year is this? 2021. I've been working in film, in movie theaters, and as a projectionist since 1997. So almost 24 years. Which should tell you about how old I am. But yes, one of not to get us too far off topic, but one of the main reasons why I hate the movie so much is all the bullshit that I had to put up with when it was released.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And now for the movie focus of the week.
Right. So the original Robocop will be our main focus for this episode. It's rated R. It's from 1987. It's a science fiction film. It runs at 1 hour and 43 minutes, and it's got a smooth 90 on Rotten.
That's a good rating.
Yeah, right? It's well deserved. Probably the strongest Robocop rating of them all.
I should hope.
Yeah, right. Directed by Paul Verhoeven, written by Edward Numier and Michael Miner, starring Peter Weller, Nancy Allen, Ronnie Cox, Kurtwood Smith, Miguel Ferrer, and Daniel O'Hurley. The film is set in a futuristic Detroit that seemingly corporate ran. After Omni Consumer Products, or OCP's first robotic prototype ends in a tragic death, they then seek to find a willing human to create a hybrid of man and machine. A plan is then hatched where Alex Murphy, a beat cop who is at the time brand new to his station, is led to his execution by both OCP and one of the city's most ruthless gangs. As Robocop is born, he must fight to regain his memories and humanity while simultaneously dismantling the corporation responsible for his demise. The idea for the film first came in the early 80s from both writers as they were working on similar concepts involving a futuristic cop. They then decided to merge their ideas, which would lead to the Robocop screenplay. The two were turned down by several major studios until Orion Pictures bought their script. But given the level of hyperviolence throughout the film, it took a while to secure a director. Even Paul Verhoeven passed on the script the first couple times it was offered to him, until his wife challenged him to look at the film's satirical and social themes, to which he then agreed to direct. He would then follow up this film with such classics as Total Recall, the erotic thriller Basic Instinct, and of course Starship Troopers. The studio hired Rob Bottin to oversee all the special effects, as they were very impressed by his work on John Carpenter's The Thing. The practical effects were so good and vicious that the MPAA initially gave the film an X rating, which caused Verhoeven to trim down and edit a lot of the violence and add the cheesy, lighthearted, and now iconic commercials in an effort to secure an R rating. When the film opened in July of 1987, it surprised everyone and was hugely successful both at the box office and critically. Being made on a budget of $13.7 million and grossing over $53 million, and even nabbing itself an Oscar for Best Sound Effects in Editing. Robocop has gone on to be a timeless classic that not only spawned 2 sequels, a television series, 2 separate cartoon runs, several different video games, comic books, and a modern reboot, but it also managed to call out the USA for problems that still plague us today. Things such as gentrification, media control, and privatization of public institutions. We challenge you to check this first film out. It's very fun. I think it's streaming right now on Showtime.
Well, damn, dude, that's an incredible write-up that you did for it. So, we can end the show here. That's better than anything that I have to say about it. So we'll wrap it up early tonight. That was really good, man. I'm always looking forward to see what your write-up is going to be before the film.
Yeah.
Or before we get into it, and that one was spectacular. Bravo, man.
Thank you, sir.
So, we're talking about Robocop. This is a movie that I really wanted to do because this is one of my favorite films. I think I've mentioned before that I didn't see it when it first, came out in the theater. I was still fairly young at the time, but my dad had tried to rent it for us to watch.
Okay.
One day, he and my mother had seen it and had tried to rent it for us to watch one day. My sister and I, like a rainy day home from school, whatever. And didn't get it because actually the film was very popular on home video. Mm-hmm. And was kind of always not sold out, but always rented out. But had tried to rent it one day, to kind of keep my sister and I entertained. And my mom was like, "Are you crazy?" Like, I don't think so, because like I said, they had seen the movie and it's just so over the top, gory and violent. So I think she was thinking that we were probably a little too young at that point in time, and she was right. I mean, I was 8 years old, maybe.
I think
so my sister was younger than that, 6 years old.
That's about the time. It must have been 8 or 9. Obviously, we have an age gap, so this is not the same time bracket, of course. The movie had been out for at least a little bit, a few years by the time that I saw it, but I did see it at a very young age. Because I was adopted by my grandparents. My grandfather was a big sci-fi fan, and he's no longer with us, so R.I.P. But yes, he introduced me to Robocop, and he bought, I think, the 1 and 2. We had them on VHS, and I was one of those kids that were very lucky, where for some reason my grandparents were really strict on sexual content with me, obviously for good reason. That's good, but violence and gore and stuff, they for the most part were pretty relaxed about that. So I was able to see Robocop, and I actually, for me, I didn't think that there was anything wrong with it, because I grew up with fucking having Nightmare on Elm Street and stuff in the house, and that was just kind of normal for me. I've always been able to kind of distinguish reality from film, and yeah. So, but you know, even saying that, you know, until I revisited it kind of more as an adult, I didn't realize how, like,